The first story you were ever told was a lie. They didn't just edit the book, they rewrote history. They turned a rebel into a temptress, a queen into a monster. Her name was Lilith. Before Eve, before the fall, there was another woman. A woman erased, demonized, and buried in the shadows for thousands of years. But if you follow the fragments, the forbidden texts, the whispers of lost scripture, you find something unsettling. Lilith isn't just a myth, she's a mirror of fear, of power, and of the truths they never wanted you to hear. Her story begins, not in Eden, but in the night. Lilith's shadow doesn't begin with the Bible. It begins in Mesopotamia, cradle of civilization, land of deserts and gods. On clay tablets, carved in the oldest writing, there's a word, Lilith, not one woman, but many. Storm demons, night spirits, figures of the dark. They slipped through windows while families slept. They stole the breath of infants. They seduced men in dreams. They spread sickness where they passed. To the Sumerians, they were chaos given form. Feminine figures who refused to stay inside the walls of the home. And in the Epic of Gilgamesh, humanity's first great story, we glimpse her. A dark maiden living inside the hulapu tree. Beside her, a serpent coils. Above her, a bird takes nest. When Gilgamesh strikes the tree, the serpent slithers away. The bird flies. And the maiden, Lilith's shadow, flees into the wilderness. Already she is cast as dangerous. Already she is driven out. But this is only the beginning. As the myths traveled, from Sumer to Babylon, from Assyria to Akkad, Lilith began to change. In Babylonian incantations, she became Lamashtu, a she-demon who preyed on mothers and newborns. Amulets were carved in her name, spells recited to keep her away. Her whisper spread because she represented something terrifying, an untamed, independent woman. The first fragments of Lilith are born here, not yet Adam's wife, not yet a queen of demons, just an echo, a shadow of independence that haunted the men who built empires on obedience. For centuries, Lilith lived in the margins, a shadow in folklore, a night demon whispered about to children. But Jewish mysticism gave her something far more dangerous than a whisper. It gave her a story, and that story begins with a riddle inside the Bible itself. Genesis tells the creation of woman twice. In one passage, man and woman are formed together, molded from the dust of the earth, equals, sharing the divine image. But in another, woman comes second, pulled carefully from Adam's rib while he sleeps. Two beginnings, two origins. And for centuries, scholars argued which was true. The rabbis answered differently. Both. The first woman was not Eve. The first was Lilith. Her story emerges in a strange medieval text, the alphabet of Ben Sira. It says Adam and Lilith were created together, not one before the other, not superior, not subordinate, formed from the same clay, and for a time they lived as equals. But equality in Eden proved dangerous. When Adam sought to rule her, Lilith resisted. She would not kneel, she would not bow. Their quarrel was not about love, it was about power. Who leads and who obeys? And then came one of the most shocking moments in all Jewish law. Lilith spoke the ineffable name, the hidden name of God. No human was ever meant to utter it, but with that word, Lilith rose into the air and vanished. She fled Eden to the edge of the world, to the desolate waters of the Red Sea. From here, her legend darkens. Some say she lay with demons, birthing monsters of the night. Others say she crowned herself Queen of Shadows. Adam, abandoned, cried out to God. So, 3 angels, Senoi, Sansenoi, and Semangeloth, were sent to bring her back. They found her by the Red Sea. They ordered her to return. Lilith refused. She had tasted freedom. She would not go back. The angels threatened her with death. Lilith laughed, and so came her curse. Each day, she declared, 100 of her children would die, unless amulets, marked with the angels' names, were hung above every newborn's bed. From that moment on, mothers prayed to protect their infants from the first woman. Meanwhile, God created another wife for Adam. But this one was different. She was not formed from the same clay. She was pulled from Adam's rib, bone of his bone, flesh of his flesh. Where Lilith was equal, Eve was compliant. Where Lilith said no, Eve was made to say yes. And so Lilith's name was stricken from the holy story, replaced with silence. But this silence was no accident. It was a warning. A woman who demanded equality was turned into a monster. The first rebel was rewritten as the first demon. Lilith was not erased. She was weaponized. When Lilith left Eden, her story should have ended. She should have vanished into silence. But silence was dangerous. A woman who refused to kneel could not simply disappear. She had to be rewritten. In the shadows of folklore, scribes sharpened their pens. The texts tell us she made her home by the Red Sea, a place already feared in the ancient world. Storms, wilderness, demons. Here, her story mutates. No longer the first woman, no longer Adam's equal. She becomes the mother of shadows, the consort of demons, the womb of monsters. Adam pleads with God, bring her back, restrain her, force her. So the 3 angels descend again. Obey, they command, or die. Lilith refuses. She always refuses. The punishment is cruel. Each day, 100 of her children will perish. And yet, she does not bow. From then on, her name becomes a curse. The first woman becomes the first demoness. Every crib marked with an amulet, every fever explained away, every shadow in the night blamed on her. This wasn't myth, it was propaganda. A rebellion punished not with exile, but with narrative. Lilith's independence recoded into evil, her freedom reframed as monstrosity. It is the oldest weapon humanity ever forged. Not the sword, not the crown, but the story. And Lilith became the story that warned, this is what happens to the woman who says no. Exiled from Eden, Lilith vanished from Adam's tale. But in the forbidden texts, she did not wander alone. They say she found another, not Adam of clay, but Samael, the adversary, the angel of fire, the one later called Lucifer. their union was forged in defiance. If Adam and Eve symbolized obedience, then Lilith and Samael became its mirror image. A cosmic rebellion, a dark wedding. She was named Queen of Demons. He, King of the Fallen. Together, they reigned not in Eden, but in wilderness, where no law could chain them. In the Zohar, mystics whispered, Lilith was the shadow twin of the Shekinah, God's radiant feminine presence. If Shekinah was the sacred bride, Lilith was the unholy one, untamed, unyielding, equal to the morning star himself. Priests painted this as terror, but others saw it as coronation. Lilith was no longer Adam's wife, she was Lucifer's queen. Her throne in hell was legend, but her presence on earth was intimate. They said she didn't knock. She slipped through the smallest cracks, a window unlatched, a door left ajar. Mothers feared her first. Cribs pulled closer to fires, charms tied above beds, clay bowls buried beneath thresholds, prayers spiraling inward like traps. If a baby died, if milk soured, if fever struck at night, the name was spoken, Lilith. Men feared her too, a shadow on the chest, breath stolen in sleep, a visitation that felt like desire and curse at once. Today we call it sleep paralysis. Then, it was the mother of nightmares. Her mask shifted from culture to culture, an owl in one village, a whisper in another, always female, always feared. But look closer, and every tale sharpens the same blade. Desire is danger, curiosity is sin, a woman's will is punishment. So was Lilith really the monster? Or was she the mirror, showing the nightmare of a world that demanded her silence? To the Hebrews, she became Lilith ha-Layla, the night hag, a figure who pressed on the chests of men in sleep, breath stolen, panic rising, terror with no face. In Europe, she was the succubus. In Scandinavia, the Mara. In Japan, the Kanashibari. Different names, same terror, a woman-shaped shadow, feeding in the dark. Wives whispered her name when husbands dreamed of others. Mothers muttered prayers when children cried out in their sleep. What did she seek? Desire, life, breath. The things she was denied when she walked away from Eden. Every nightmare that left you paralyzed. Every shadow seated at the foot of the bed. They said it was her, an eternal whisper in the dark. You cannot escape me. For centuries, Lilith was the monster in the margins. But myths don't stay still. They transform. In mystic circles, she was invoked as power, not curse. By the 19th century, poets painted her not as a hag, but as beauty incarnate. Dante Gabriel Rossetti called her the most beautiful of women. Dangerous, yes, but radiant. And in the 20th century, feminists saw her differently again, not as a demon, but as the first woman who said no, the first exile from paradise. Occultists carved her name into rituals. Witches crowned her queen. Today, she is no longer the terror whispered in cradles. She is the whisper in every woman's ear. You are not made to be silent. Once banished, now invoked. Once feared, now followed. The first feminist, the rebel goddess, the mother of exiles. Every culture tells the story of forbidden women. Pandora opening her jar, Persephone tasting the seed of the underworld, Lilith walking out of Eden. The names change, the landscapes shift, but the pattern remains. A woman defies and is punished. Yet shadows never truly vanish. They wait, they whisper, they return. Lilith is no longer just scripture, or demonology, or myth. She is the archetype of resistance itself. To the priests, she was terror. To the poets, beauty. To the witches, power. And to the rebels of today, she is the first name ever spoken in defiance. The garden is dust, the gates of Eden gone. But Lilith remains, not as a demon, not as a saint, but as an eternal shadow, following humanity wherever freedom dares to bloom. But Lilith remains, not as a demon, not as a saint, but as an eternal shadow, following humanity wherever freedom dares to bloom. These are the stories that hide in the shadows, the ones they didn't want you to find. If you want to continue this journey with us and descend into the myths that history tried to bury, then like, subscribe, and join the search. We'll be waiting for you, deeper in the dark.